the government shutdown ended before Monday morning, essentially, where there was a continuing resolution until mid-February, where we will do this again, supposedly, and the federal child health insurance program was funded for 6 years. There were other smaller things. There were cuts to other healthcare programs. There was a provision that was put in that basically said we, as a public and the Congress, no longer have the ability to know where covert money is being spent because the administration can shift this money around without telling anybody. But that's where we were. And I don't know. What was your take on the way that this panned out?
Well, I actually have a fairly, well thought out theory of how this went that kind of flies in the face of what I think most people how they see it. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's just the sense I get. I don't think that the Democrats had planned for a shutdown at all. I think that they had a strategy, which I think went back a ways, where they thought, and I think a lot of this was based upon Lindsey Graham, and I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell had winked and nodded at this as well, which is that they had thought that, the only way that you can get the House Freedom Caucus to vote for any kind of immigration bill, pretty much anything, but specifically on immigration, which is it is a fundamental, first-degree issue with the base of the Democratic Party. It's the central promise of Donald Trump's campaign. It is what took out Eric Cantor back in 2014. This is a very, very, very fundamental issue to the far right.
To the Republican Party. To the
Republican Party. Right. Yeah. I mean, this is their their raison d'être in many ways today in the far right sector of the Republican Party and among Trump voters. This was what they voted. This was a very, very important promise. So I think what happened was...
And let me just interject here, too, for some historical context. There has been this dynamic, and you bring up Dave Bratt, who took out Cantor, who was, the number 2, I think, most powerful Republican. This dynamic where the Republican base basically bought what the Republican Party had been selling to them for a long time, this anti-immigrant fervor. They've had a tough time shaking this. I mean, 2005, I think it was, the Bush administration wanted to pass some type of comprehensive immigration reform because Karl Rove, could see the demographic tea leaves, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it.
And by the way, largely as a result of organizing on the part of people like then Senator Jeff Sessions, that later on when they tried again, I think, I can't remember, was it 2010? They tried the comprehensive immigration reform when they had the Gang of Eight and all that. Again, that same group organized to tank it in the Senate and in the House. So I'm just putting this out here to say this is a very, very difficult problem for anyone who wants to pass this, Democrat and Republican alike, okay? There is a group of fanatics in the Republican Party that are anti-immigrant and, frankly, anti-dreamer. They tanked the DREAM Act back in, 2007, originally. And any kind of comprehensive immigration reform now is called amnesty, and they get their base all riled up with it. So this is an important issue to them. What happened was, I think because Donald Trump came into the presidency with, a ton of credibility among those people on this issue. This was something they truly, the base of the Republican Party and the Trump voters truly believe that Donald Trump understands and wants to deliver for them. So when he showed some flexibility on the Dreamers, and Lindsey Graham, by the way, this is his issue. Immigration is one of his, in the military, but the immigration is one of his top issues. He's been working on it for years, and he really is one who's consistently been looking for some kind of a bipartisan compromise, which included, finding some way to sort of legalize the Dream Kids over the course of this whole long period. So he has credibility on his side, right, as a Republican who truly wants to make this deal. So he's been cultivating Trump for months. He's been, kissing up to him, telling me it's a great golf swing and whatever, and appealing to what he thought was Trump's better nature on these dream kids. And Trump has, he's all over the map as usual. But he has said in the past that he wanted to do something for those kids. Remember, he had the press conference back in February. I love kids. I have kids. We're going to help the kids.
Right.
He said this. He gets all very sentimental over this. So I think Graham thought that he had pushed Trump in this direction and that he had Trump's, chit that he could play in the negotiations. He had Trump's ear. He could negotiate on Trump's behalf. So they had that meeting on the Tuesday, remember, the televised
right.
conference, and Trump says, I'll take the heat, bring me any deal, the bipartisan, I will sign it. We've got we need a bill of love. And everybody, people came out of that meeting. I'm sure that many people were kind of rolling their eyes at Trump, but nonetheless, Lindsey Graham and the other people who were working with him, like Jeff Flake and Cory Gardner, there were other Republicans in the Senate who were working with him, who said, look, we got him. I know he sounds crazy, but, I've been talking to him. We got him. And they went in and made the deal. Then they came back on the next Thursday, and Trump blew the whole thing up with his shithole comment, right? This was the end of the bipartisan deal, and everything fell apart. They were left with Chuck Schumer having to go up to the White House, the following week and have a couple of cheeseburgers and try to hammer out some kind of a compromise. And by that time, the whole negotiation had fallen apart. So what I think had happened, this is my personal view, is that, I think Graham had convinced people, and like I said, maybe even with a wink and nod by McConnell and Ryan, and Ryan's important here, because if Trump had done this thing, if Graham had gotten Trump to back that compromise and back that negotiation, they were assuming that Trump could bring along his Trump voters. And if he had done that, they could go back to the House, and Trump could potentially bring along Mark Meadows and the Freedom Caucus
right.
and all these people and say, look, this is me. They trust me on immigration, guys. I can do this. I'll go hold rallies. I'll tell people all about
right. I give
whatever.
You the air cover, as it were.
Exactly. I will do that. And I think that Graham and maybe some others thought this was their best chance, because I'm telling you, if Trump doesn't do that, if he will not give those people air cover, they're not going to do it. And even if the Senate
right.
comes up with some kind of a deal, the House is not going to do it. They're going to have to go back to them, and that this deal is not going to happen. So it's all about Trump. Trump was the trump card in this negotiation, and of course, he failed.